Larry tried to kill me.
Yeah. I was so thoroughly disgusted.
I mean, think about it. Why does it make you special to do what you do?
Packers jumping around. They rush 4. Plenty of time for John. Now squeezes, steps up in the pocket. LA can run. Inside the 10. Head first. He dives off the 5-yard line. My goodness.
Rushing 4, ball comes out of the hands of Newton. It's on the ground and still on the ground. Picked up by T.J. Ward at the 4-yard line.
There's also Brian Clady and Bob Miller. 3rd and long 3. Going deep. Oh, and he's got Thomas. Goodbye. Touchdown.
Here we go. First snap of the overtime. The Broncos have been in 3 overtime games this year. They won them all. Got him at the 40. It's Thomas at the 50. Stiff arm got him. Green to the 30. To the 20. Thomas to the 10. Denver's going on the New England. They win it on the first play of overtime.
Well, hey, everybody. How's it going? Mundungus Creevey here, as always, with my co-host, Glenn Hauser, Mr. Boggins, and Cameron Parker. And we are going to try to discuss the Broncos without bursting into tears. How's everybody's day going so far?
We got through Monday, and now it's Tuesday. We're gonna. I mean, yeah. So I'm doing well.
That's usually how it happens.
Yeah. Logically, yes. Your brain may not actually be at Tuesday though.
I'm honestly just filling my time with all the Senior Bowl news and all the transfer portal news. Just trying to keep my mind off of all the sadness that's happening currently with the Denver Broncos. I try to be as optimistic as possible, as a Broncos fan. Sometimes it's hard. Sometimes it's a little hard, and I am doing my best to get through today and the next day and just loving my Broncos so much, even though it's just a trash heap right now, but it's fine. Everything's fine.
Did Coach Prime say to go in the transfer portal as Bronco fans? See if you can find another team.
That was insane though. This is a separate point, but it's like that was crazy, kind of following like all the craziness of that transfer portal. I think I saw an insane statistic that was like 60 some quarterbacks were in the transfer portal. Like I think it was 62 last I saw, which is just an insane number. So yeah, especially with Deion Sanders at CU, it's going to be crazy to see the transfer portal. I mean, the transfer portal is already kind of a big deal anyway in college football lately, but the fact that Deion went in and because did you guys see his it was one of his tweets and like thousands and thousands of high school players were like commenting under his tweet. Like it was crazy.
Oh yeah, plenty of recruits saying they're coming. They're coming.
There's 64 quarterbacks if you counted Baker Mayfield.
Yeah.
So speaking of Baker Mayfield,
that's what we call a
segue.
segue.
He's with the Rams now.
Wearing a weird number.
And I do find it interesting that the Niners didn't even put in a claim for him, even with Jimmy G going down.
I honestly had guessed earlier on Twitter that he wouldn't find a team because why? Like at this point, there aren't any teams in contention that like the 49ers, like what's his name? Gosh dang it, why am I forgetting his name? Purdy came in and played fine. He knows the offense. Like I don't know why you would you would spend on bringing Baker in when you can just use your own backups that have been in your system for a while at least. I know that it was only like a 1.8 or something, but I don't know. I just didn't see any big moves of bringing him in to potentially be a starter. But it looks like, I mean, the Rams should have been obvious. Of course they did. Of course.
Well, maybe the Rams just needed some helmetless headbutts on the team to kind of boost morale.
It's a free agency pickup.
Well,
it's like, of course, the Rams pick up someone that is old and, on the end, not old, but on their last legs.
He's like 26.
I feel like he's old at this point. He's spent his
NFL old.
Let's be honest, his NFL career has seen its way through.
Yeah. So he actually requested his release, and banking on at least the 49ers would grab him. But one thing I did see today also was if another team does in fact pick him up, if the Rams don't keep him after this season, they could possibly end up with a compensatory pick. So it's kind of a smart move for just over $1 million.
Yeah, it was interesting that with the 49ers not going in, it kind of made a lot of sense that they didn't, because to further what Boggins was talking about, is like they also were able to kind of right the ship a little bit with CJ Beathard and Nick Mullins like in the past, and so it was one of those cases where it was like it's fine, and especially with the way that Brock Purdy played. I mean, and especially with the way Jimmy Garoppolo has played within that system, like you have Kyle Shanahan there. I mean, he kind of rights the ship anyway. And so if you have a quarterback that just is able to manage the system well, not saying that Baker couldn't do that, but it's just like, if you're able to right the ship and, at least have it above water before, because apparently it seems like Garoppolo is going to come back. So if he's able to come back and you've got your head above water, I mean, that's about all you can ask for.
Yeah, it says Jimmy G's possibly out until the playoffs, maybe longer. But that also means that's potentially a good thing for the Broncos if the Niners just bomb until Jimmy G comes back. We get a higher draft pick. Right. Yay!
That's right.
Yay!
There's your silver lining.
I heard when you're handsome, you heal faster.
That's why it takes me forever.
I should have
I
guess I should have had
sprained ankle since high school.
Maybe we all should have hoped for Baker, I guess, to the Niners, because that would have just been disastrous for them, and that would have been fantastic for us. So let's shoot.
Okay, Bob Gaynor wants to know why we're so bad.
This is now our show, Bob.
How much time do we got?
That's a very open-ended question.
It's a mini series, yeah.
But real quick before we get into that, we do have some good news. So Dalton Reisner was named the Denver Broncos Walter Payton Man of the Year nominee. Justin Simmons was named the previous 3 years, but Dalton Reisner gets it this year. And I don't know if everybody saw that video where he got announced, but I almost cried, and I was driving, and you can't mix the two. But it's a very good video. Go check it out. It's up on the Denver Broncos YouTube page. I think the Twitter page has it too.
Mm-hmm. And like I tweeted earlier, genuinely one of the nicest people. Mm-hmm. I personally, I mean, I could probably speak for the rest of the group in here. Like one of the nicest, genuine people we've ever interviewed.
Yeah,
he is such a good dude. Yeah. So nice, so caring, so like. Infatuated with the idea of making other people's lives better, and it was absolutely fantastic that he won. I mean, don't get me wrong, Justin Simmons is also an absolute champ and a genuine human being as well. Mm-hmm. But it was cool to see someone else who also put so much work into the community get the recognition.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. I mean, when you especially for us, like, and you said it, Boggins, like having the ability to interview Dalton and getting to know him and understanding the time that he took out of his own day to be on with us. And and that just, it brings, joy to my, face, knowing the fact that You know, because we all know that, like, when you schedule an interview, it's like, oh, you know, how much time do you have,
Mhm.
you know, with a certain, you know, person? Well, you know, Dalton has been that kind of guy that goes, you know, I know, you know, I was only on for 30 minutes, but I'll be on for 30 minutes more. Like, that's just the kind of guy that he is, he's just going to go out of his way and, you know, pay it forward. Be that kind of guy that is going to leave the world a much better place than, you know, than you found it. And like, and those people are very rare. Like, those people are very rare. And the fact that we've been, you know, fortunate and blessed to have, you know, guys like Justin Simmons and, you know, Dalton Reisner, you know, carry that mantle as far as a Walter Payton Man of the Year nominee is pretty great. You know, certainly. So yeah, if you have not seen the video of Reisner on there on the football field, fair warning, you will cry.
Yeah.
And I love how at the very beginning of that video, like the lady's taking him through, like, hey, you're going to stand here. You're just going to wave at him. It's going to be awkward. And it's like, oh,
Yeah.
that's a way to set it up.
You know, one of the things I remember when he came on our show was, like Cam said, you know, just to give some behind the scenes, when we have a guest like that, we typically ask for 20 minutes or 25 minutes. And then if you see them on there for a full hour,
yeah,
they've chosen to stay on longer, and you know, it's very appreciated. And with Dalton, he decided to stay on longer, and then he got disconnected, and so we thought
died.
he was done. And the next thing you know, he bounces back in, like he was scrambling around to get his laptop off or another form to come back on. He's that kind of person. But you know, Rich mentions it in the chat, you know, that he started his foundation before he was even in the NFL. When he was at K-State, he started the Reisner Up, and here was a guy that was like, he was meeting families with you know, kids that needed, you know, a mentor like that. He was constantly going to see this older woman that was the retired secretary from the football office. Like, he was just going, and like Cam said, he's going to trying to make a difference in people's lives, trying to make a difficult situation for someone better. And when he was standing there waiting for these kids, he's like, I thought I was doing community service tonight. I mean, listen, it was best that I was by myself, because I did get emotional about it, because, you know, it meant so much to him. It's 4 minutes is time well spent, and fingers crossed that you know, a hometown boy like that can win the Walter Payton Man of the Year for the Broncos, especially since his future in Denver is up in the air at this point.
You know, it's kind of like a separate talking point, but it's one of the reasons why maybe the NFL honors, they made it such a huge deal about the Walter Payton Man of the Year. But for me, it's one of the reasons why, yes, there's the MVP award, yes, there's the Comeback Player of the Year award, yes, there's all these other awards, but it's further proof to me why the Walter Payton Man of the Year is my favorite award, because it goes beyond football. Like, it goes beyond football. It goes to who they are as human beings, who they are as people, what do they stand for, what are they using their platform for. And so to see everything that we have with, you know, with Dalton, and the fact that he's been able to take, you know, everything that he's learned and grown, and take that foundation that he had from college, and to see it grow. Because, you know, you and I talked about it, Glenn, even before we got on here. Like, that's rare. Like, when you have that opportunity for a player like that, start his own foundation in college, and to see where it's grown and become, and now it's a Walter Payton Man of the Year nominee, it's pretty crazy.
Kamani, we'll get to work on getting Russell Wilson on the show.
No, but I like.
And
like
Bronco Bill is currently in line at the nursing home for tapioca pudding, so he's not on the show.
Tapioca pudding, huh?
We did talk about you, Kamani, on Sunday's broadcast. I accused Bill of scaring you away by calling you only by your last name, because he was afraid.
I don't know if Russell Wilson honestly would go on any show right now.
Why not? Why would he?
Yeah, I just don't. He would expect pure hell.
Maybe we can do like a Saturday Night Live, like Russell Wilson impersonator. on the show.
It would not be a live interview. It would be one without comments,
So speaking of Sunday, we might as well just go over that game. I was actually not as upset with this game as I was with other games. The Broncos did end up losing 9-10, but yeah, that's all I can say. I want to say it was good, but it wasn't good. The defense was good. The defense played very well. Justin Simmons in particular had a great game, but could not keep the Ravens offense out of the end zone, nor should anyone expect the Broncos offense to shut down every single team every single week.
Yeah, I mean, I think this was the first game this season where I was actually hoping for the Broncos to get to 16 points. Like, just
raise that
give me
average.
something. Like, this is the game where we could do it. We could just do what we've been doing all season, and that would be fine. We couldn't do that.
No.
It was too difficult. The defense was holding up Lamar. Then he got injured, and then you got the backup, Huntley, and you're like, you think you're like, wow, we could actually do this. And then the last drive, like, it's like at this point, it's like the Broncos just find a way to make you sad, because you're just like, you go into the game, you're not expecting to win. Like none of us expected to win this game.
Yeah.
If you did, you're not dumb, but you're not the smartest person in the world.
So let me ask you a question then. So you look at the games we've had this season with the Broncos, and for the majority of the game, we're in it. And then it's like the last drive or the second to last drive, the defense gives up a scoring play and we lose the game. Is that a defensive problem, or is it the fact that they've just been on the field for so long, it was bound to break at some point?
It's all of it, but did you see the stat of the oh gosh, I gotta find the actual wording for this stat. You guys can continue.
But Boggins, what would like you were talking about, just to get you to finish that point, that no one really thought that the Broncos were going to beat the Ravens, but then things kind of played and the defense was playing well. In addition to Justin, Josie and Singleton each had 17 tackles, but that last drive, the 91-yard drive, when there were two really bad penalties, Singleton with that helmet to helmet 15-yarder, and then PS2, that was definitely a pass interference. I mean, you just gave up these giant chunks of yards. The conversions on the fourth down, But what was crazy is like the whole season went full circle, and the Russ got made a couple completions, and then McManus was able to kick a field goal that was roughly the same as the one he attempted against Seattle, and it fell short again. It's like, oh man, I mean, just so rough.
Well, and then to even make matters, even worse was, then we had the coaching blunder in the first half. I mean, and so and especially,
describe it, Cam, just in case someone missed that.
So basically, the Broncos decided on a 4th and 1 to basically, at first, I should say, try and get the defense to jump offside versus actually going for it on a 4th and manageable. And if they were able to do that, then they were able to probably kill more clock and probably not have the Ravens, they all sound the same. Ravens, be able to, finish off the half, and, and basically, if they were able to do that, they were also in the red zone as well. So, I mean, the Broncos could have been able to put a touchdown drive together, maybe their first one of the day, and they decided to kick a field goal. And, thankfully they went, into the half with the lead, but like, that to me was like one of the biggest things that stood out to me. I mean, and it was also one of those games where, Russ didn't play all that bad either. I mean, like, it's just for some reason, like, once again, our offensive line, decided to not play great, and the injuries were starting to show up. And, we're in the infrequent amount of big plays that we decide to have on offense is a problem. When certainly seems like there's big play threats maybe at times, but the fact that there's just the ineptitude to not have the amount of big plays that needs to be called is just, it's such a head scratcher.
Boggins, you find that stat?
Yeah, I did. All right. Brace yourselves. Before Sunday, NFL teams were 0-206 since 1995 when committing 2 turnovers, forcing none, and failing to exceed 10 points, according to Pro Football Reference. The Ravens made it 1-206 by beating the Broncos in this game. In the entire history of the league, which dates to 1920, teams were 8-325-1 in those games before Baltimore added to the win column Sunday.
So what you're saying is the Broncos made history this year.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Like-
the statistics that we're hearing throughout, but finish your comment, Marcus.
No, I'm just I don't even have a comment to it. It's just like,
Yeah.
like
the
why
amount of
not?
the crazy statistics, the earlier one where if we had just scored 18 points a game, we would have been 9-1, things like that. I don't even know where it stands at this point. But the fact that 10 out of the 12 games have been 1-score games and we've lost, now 7 of them, it's just astounding. But like to go back to your point about the 4th down, the Ravens were going for it on 4th down. All winning teams, all hungry teams are going for it on these 4th down. We don't show any nuts to try these plays. We've won 3 games. What do we have to lose? Who cares if we don't convert? No one's going to complain about that. I'm so tired of seeing Corliss Waitman out there when on a 4th and short when we actually could try to generate a score. We've scored 3 touchdowns since Halloween. It's December 6th right now. I mean, it's just.
And I will say
that
this,
after another.
Like out of all the moves that the Broncos have made this offseason, I know that people aren't thinking about this one the most, but who cares about how much money we saved on Waitman? We should have kept Sam Martin.
Well, initially it looked fine. But
He's
then
probably tired.
yeah, as the season wore on, it became more and more of an issue, and
He's going to get to the Pro Bowl just on sheer amount of punts.
Why can't we just find someone else? Like he's not even angling it. Like it's just kicking. I mean, it's just straight up booting the ball. I mean, there's it's bizarre that we haven't found someone else.
I did want to talk to you about the Josie Jewell Alex Singleton pairing, because is Alex Singleton a better pairing with Jewell than Jonas Griffith is?
No. I think
so.
If I were to go into next season, I honestly think that Alex Singleton and Jonas Griffith isn't going anywhere. 100%. He's not going anywhere. I think.
He's not lying.
He's like, thanks.
Appreciate you. Yeah, I honestly like this what we have going on right now. I think it is sustainable into the future. I confidently think we could go into this offseason. I mean, national media will not look at it this way, most likely, because if you've ever watched any mock draft, 90% of them always mock a inside linebacker to the Denver Broncos. I don't know what it is. Like since forever, whenever they can't think of anything, they're like, what's the best inside linebacker? Give them to the Denver Broncos. Don't know why, but I honestly think we're pretty set at inside linebacker going into the offseason as long as we can retain our pieces and they stay healthy.
yeah, and I think that's a wild card, point is I think because Singleton was signed on for 1 year. 1 year cheap deal at that, and so he's definitely proven himself to be worthy of a re-signing for the Broncos, because especially if you're looking at the chemistry that we were talking about with Jewell and and especially when Jewell was out for a period, and and here's a guy we're talking about preseason, but here's a guy where in preseason he didn't look all that great, but then the regular season hit and he's just he's averaging almost like 10 plus tackles every single game, and he's flying to the ball. He's running sideline to sideline. Like, you're seeing so many, plays from him in his ability to read and react that like was truly maybe one of the reasons why he was the Eagles' leading tackler, And so I think that if you can consider, re-signing him to, a little bit of a better deal than what he signed with the Broncos, and you have to consider it. Now here's a guy.
Yeah, and it's I don't know. Like there was a lot of things with that game, like Brandon McManus missing the field goal. I mean, do we think he's still going to be here next year after
No.
what he's done this year? I mean, he's not automatic anymore.
I can promise you that I have lately been mocking some kickers into my mock drafts. There's a guy out of Ohio State, and there's a guy out of Missouri. There's a couple that I have my eyes on because I want someone cheap and at least decent.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Well, like we're now starting to see where all of the injuries are coming into play. I mean, offensive line, you've got running backs. Like we were all hoping that Latavius Murray, Marlon Mack, Mike Boone would do something. I mean, it's been okay, but like this game, they averaged 2.6 yards a carry. Like that's not going to cut it. And even with Russell Wilson, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say back to a question we got earlier of what's wrong with the team. Yeah, I mean, it's honestly so many different things. It's honestly so like the situational play calling has been so bad. There was one where on a 3rd and 10, I don't know if you guys saw, Tim Jenkins posted the all 22 for where literally you had, I think it was trips left, and they all went out in the same. They were in the same bunched area, and you were just like, what is this? You're not sure if that's it because it's one of two things. It's either it's a coaching issue, whether or not, but it's either a Hackett issue of a play call that's just like the most ridiculous thing you've ever seen, or it's a Zach Kazani issue where he's not teaching he's not coaching up his receivers good enough so that they know what they're doing, because throwing 3 receivers in one area 10 yards down the field is kind of hilarious. It literally looked like Hail Mary, except 10 yards. It was super, super weird. And the offensive line obviously has had a ton of issues. Unfortunately, outside of even the injuries, there has been a lot of lackluster play from, like Reisner hasn't been great. Cush wasn't playing great. Right tackle, we still don't know what's going on. Turner came in for a sec, did okay for a sec, and then he was hurt again. Like it's been just like a rotating issue, everything. And so it's going to be a very, very interesting offseason to see what happens, because I don't think Peyton is in the hot seat this year, and I have been a big advocate for Peyton in general because I think that he's made good decisions that have had very unlucky outcomes. Obviously, there are some decisions that not great, like extending Russ. However,
hiring
I don't think he's gone this year. And so it is going to be very interesting to see all of what they do, as far as most likely Hackett's gone, because that's a problem. What they're going to do with the O-line. Are you going to completely rebuild that thing outside of Quinn Myers? If you're going to start trying to save money and restructuring for potentially letting Russ go down the line, who are you going to try to restructure, and are they going to agree to it?
Yeah.
You're going to have to try and extend players like a Draymond Jones. Do they want to stay with the team because the team is trash right now? Mm-hmm. Like it comes down to the players and if they are even willing to do that anymore. So it's going to be a mess for a while, guys. I'm not going to lie. I don't know exactly what this is what's going to really test you as a Broncos fan. You're going to stay in it and just really hope that down the line we're going to get to the playoffs again, because it might be a little bit like a few years before we're really looking at that again, unless the only way that isn't the case is if for some miracle we go into the off season, Russ figures it out, whatever he needs to figure out, comes back and is able to at least play top 15. Then we're looking at potential playoffs. But outside of that,
and that's
Mark,
one of the
like,
things that I wanted to bring up was like in this game, we saw a Russell Wilson that had like the training wheels on. Like it looked like Teddy Bridgewater was out there on the field. Short throws, little dinks and dunks. Like there was that's not Russell Wilson. Like is that a trust thing? Is that a bringing it back to the basics? Is it a Russell Wilson is the problem thing? Like why are we all of a sudden going back to training wheels?
I hadn't thought about it before just now, but maybe, perhaps they're coaching a little bit scared. And so they're thinking some of these dinks and dunks are the easy way to go and to convert. Because if you think about the biggest play of the game, when the Broncos were down on their own 7 and Russ reared back and heaved it up and Judy caught it for a 40-yard gain, that changed so much at that moment. The momentum was completely on the Broncos side. They got out of the shadows of the end zone. Russ bombed it out. It was a beautiful catch by Jerry, who was finally back. That's what I want to see. I want to see them start the freaking game on Sunday with their first possession, 1st and 10, and throw a pass and like a deep bomb. One thing that we haven't talked that you didn't mention too, Boggins, I'm just switching gears for a second, is our guy Montreal is just like the guy. I can't believe he's still returning kicks. Like the return game has been so detrimental. I mean, at this point, I can't see him being on the team next year. Just in any capacity. He's made no impact on as a wide receiver, and on the return game, it's just been so bad, and they're not changing it. I don't know why they haven't found somebody. There are millions of football players in this world. We can't find somebody to return a kick. We can't find somebody to punt a ball.
Right. Well, and that's the same thing I was going to say was, is it Montreal or is it the lack of blocking? Because now you've got like people that were signing off the practice squad on special teams because you've got special teams guys as starters on the offense and the defense now.
Right.
So is it a Montreal problem or is it the rest of the special teams blocking problem?
I think it's a full special teams issue. Montreal, like when you hear Stooks in his weekly conversation, his weekly presser, they always ask, what about, and he keeps saying, I've had this conversation over and over again with Montreal, not to catch a ball here, not to catch. So, one other thing I do want to add is Bronco Bill had sent me a link to this podcast with Liv Moods and Orlando Franklin, and it was an excellent podcast. But Orlando predicts that, he said that the culture needs to completely change next year, and his expectation is at least a third of the roster will be turned over, and he was even including like on the practice squad. So he's figuring 21 to 23 players are that are presently on the team are gone next year. I could see that happen easily.
At the beginning of the year, we talked about Dulcich and we talked about Albert O as the starting tight ends of the Denver Broncos. Mm-hmm. What in God's name happened to Albert O? Like, even with the lack of wide receiver production on this team, we still haven't seen Albert O.
The guess is as good as mine, but I know that he's in the doghouse, and we've mentioned it, a few times. But like, he's clearly in the doghouse, and but at the same token, like, he also Dulcich is not necessarily quite near, the blocking ability, But I mean, I will say though that Dulcich is making an impact in the passing game. Not to say that Albert O could not have done, that with, Albert Okwuegbunam, but, it's clearly that they have way more faith right now in Greg Dulcich, in everything that he's been able to contribute on the field, than Albert Okwuegbunam. But I mean, yeah, it's definitely one of those cases where, if you have nothing to lose, why not just get him out of the doghouse and just kind of see what he has and see if he can, right the wrong, I should say. But I mean, and Pat, it made the good point in the comments that, I mean, maybe that is ultimately the difference, is that Dulcich he may not be as good of a blocker, but he's at least putting in the effort. And maybe that's the point between Albert Okawebanam and Dulcich is actually, putting forth the effort. Okawebanam, he's not choosing to do the effort.
Which is funny because they both have like the same skill set, essentially. Like when they first came in, I was just like, you're drafting a similar player that you already have, and Albert O had shown some sort of upside, but I don't know. He just wasn't. He has had quite a few drops, and he just wasn't producing. And I think that I think the intangibles are better for Dulcich. I think a lot of the times you don't see this production in a first-year tight end, and I think they've been relying on him a lot, and that speaks volumes. So I don't think that Albert O is really. I wouldn't be surprised if he's not on the roster going forward in the offseason. I just don't. I think you can find other more versatile tight ends that kind of feel that need when you have your tight end one, especially when you run 12 personnel a lot like you do. But I mean, who knows what we're going to go into going into the offseason. It's so funny because you try to project into the future, but when you don't know who your who your coach is going to be, you're just like, meh, I don't know.
Yeah. And Peyton was asked in his last press conference, the last press availability. I can't remember what the maybe it was when Bradley Chubb got traded, and someone asked him about Albert O, and he's like, he's still an important part of the team. You are gonna see him more, as the weeks progress. Blah 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 blah. Of course, it's a healthy scratch. Do you think there was any sort of interest in giving even up a 7th round pick or something around the league for a guy like that, or were they just expecting the Broncos to cut him?
Didn't Albright put out that there wasn't any interest in Albert O? They tried to trade him and nobody wanted him.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think there was a ton of interest for him. I think he's he's solid when you already have him on your team. Like, he can make some plays. He is an athletic freak and is a mismatch nightmare. If you can utilize him, cool. But the problem is whether or not he can actually execute. When he can catch the ball, he can make big plays for you. But
like Julius Thomas type plays, are you thinking? Or?
Yeah, we're going deep cut there. I agree. It's similar.
I didn't say Virgil Green.
Come on, both. I mean, Virgil Green was actually a solid ball. Virgil Green is one of the most underrated Broncos tight ends of all time.
I've heard that.
Agree.
Ring of Honor tight end.
Ring of Honor.
But yeah, kind of like around Julius Thomas, but like not as good. You don't have Peyton Manning, so who knows? Better hands. Julius Thomas had better hands.
So looking forward, Kamani asked the question, I think kind of makes sense. Do we see us winning any more games this year? And that's going into the Chiefs game this coming weekend.
Honestly,
we haven't won in 13 games, by the way.
Let's look at the schedule because I don't even know anymore.
I think Rams and Cardinals, we stand good chances of winning those, but other
I think the Rams is probably the one you can look at and go, maybe.
Well, now they got Baker.
Ooh.
Did you see Wolford throwing the ball? Like it was.
Thank God we only have 3 more games. That's the best part of the schedule. Oh man, wait, no,
we got more than 3.
I was gonna say.
Where's
your math there, buddy?
We got the Rams and the Cards.
I don't know. I'm blanked out, guys. I'm out.
Yeah, we got 5 actually. You're right.
Okay, I honestly think that the Broncos are going to get swept in the AFC West. I think that's a pretty good possibility at this point. You got the Chargers kind of collapsing right now, so maybe not. I think we beat the Chiefs? See, this is the problem because, like, you look at it and you're like, well, the Chiefs are going to beat us 37-7. Well, no, because the defense is never going to allow that many points. Do I think we win? No. Do I think it's going to be a blowout? Depends on what you mean by a blowout. Like,
Yeah.
You know,
At this
Melvin
point-
Gordon
at
is
this
scoring a
point, like
touchdown.
7 points is a blowout to us.
If there's any team to give us our defense problems, it's the Chiefs. And if there's any game for our offense to assist with that, it would be this game. Will they? Absolutely not. So it will probably be a blowout.
Yeah.
What are the odds Melvin scores a touchdown? I think it's I think they're. It's
Did they put him?
correct.
They activate him?
No, but you know that they will coming back. But I mean, the guy.
I hope they put him in and he fumbles, and then it's
I hope they just use him
That
to
would be the
try to
greatest
get
thing.
some inside information or something, and then just be like, "All right, see you later." And why did we get inside information when we know we're going to wreck him anyways?
You know, maybe this is just the Broncos, at least this particular season, kind of turning me into a pessimistic fan. But I don't see us winning any games the rest of the way.
Oh my god!
I have a question. How what's a good question for this? How weirded out would you be, or how much would it actually make sense if the Broncos took one of the games against the Chiefs? It's been many years since we beat the Chiefs, and what if this is the one?
I think it would be. By the same token, I think it would also be kind of fitting with what this year has been. You know, like, because this year has been so weird and so wacky with a lot of different things, and also like the fact that the lone game or two that we have where we put up 20 plus points and we win is against the Chiefs. Like that would be, or even like on the flip side, Melvin Gordon is active, against the Chiefs and they're getting ready to score. He fumbles the ball. We return the ball over and score. I'm joking, but like that would be that would be like just the overall course of the season. Like it's just been such a weird season overall. But I'm not saying they're going to win any rest of the games this year, because that's just the way the Broncos have been this year. I mean, they're under 14 points a game. They're pathetic. Like they're just a pathetic football team, and I don't see them winning any games.
Yeah. I mean, like the two games that I think we have the best chance are obviously LA and the Cardinals, but I just don't. I honestly just don't think we have the talent to match, whether it be on in players on the field or even personnel. Because I think like Cardinals have some players that I think might just beat us, and the Rams I think will outcoach us. So it's really tough to say. I am hopeful that we'll get a couple games in there because I want the Seahawks to move back as far as possible, because the fact that they have the 3rd overall pick right now is some kind of BS. Because it's just like we went into the season thinking, we're gonna get Russell Wilson, right? And then our pick is going to be at the end of the 1st round anyways. So what? Like, bro, we won this trade and look where we're at. This is not okay. I'm not.
Monty
okay.
says, man, what if we run the table? If that happens, Bronco Bill can call me Dixon all the time, and I'll buy him a year's supply of pudding. All right.
I don't know what that means, but I'm here.
I don't know what that is either, but your supply of pudding sounds good.
Yeah.
So Bill always calls him Dixon.
Your supply of pudding is my nickname in high school.
What was your nickname in high school?
Your supply.
Your supply of pudding.
Bill and I were on Sunday. We were really enjoying just watching Hackett on the sideline. You saw him with the glasses. He looked like he was kind of in incognito there. And then all of a sudden you see him with the headset on, but in a previous press conference, he had referenced the fact that he didn't have a button to talk to anybody. So he's just walking around like pretending to be doing something. It was almost comical because he wasn't talking to the offense. He wasn't back there. It was just, I'm trying to figure out exactly what his role is at this particular.
Well, now he's got a beard sprouting. Like the guy is stressed to no end right now.
I know. Once you get a beard, you're completely overcompensating for something.
Pretty much.
Oh, I'm sure they all sleep there. Don't get any sleep. Like they don't get sleep at the facility. How about that? They just sit around and think about their future. And
Don't spend too much time thinking about it.
Like,
That's why Alan sleeps on the couch.
is it sad to think about that? Like, at some point, maybe Hackett has called his family or his wife and be like, "Hey, baby, you know how we were putting that house on the market in Green Bay?
Oh.
Like, maybe we should just like hold on to that for a second. Just hold on to that for one second, because it might not, you know what I mean?"
Honey, pack up the gold suit. We're leaving town.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. Sad to think about. I wanted him to work out. Seemed like a really cool dude.
I know he does.
And,
I mean, I'm
but
picking
like,
on him.
and I like how people are making a big deal about the hasn't lost the locker room. Like, a guy like that wouldn't. Like, you want to. It's kind of like a Terrell Owens with Carson Palmer. It's like, that's my quarterback, man. When he like knew that he wasn't like playing well, but he didn't want to throw him under the bus because he loved him so much. It's probably like the rest of the team is like, I love him. That's my coach, man. Like, they're not going to throw him under the bus because they love him, but they know it's not going great. I'm sure they would rather have Russ back out the door than Hackett.
Yeah, it seems like the pairing of those two just did not. Well, then there's all the people that are like, oh, well, Hackett was only brought in to bring in Rodgers, and then they didn't get Rodgers, so they brought in Wilson, and it's a bad pair, and that's why it didn't work. Do we honestly think that's what happened?
I don't think so. I think that he honestly won over the interview. I think that the plan was Dan Quinn, the 1A. Kind of like they were talking about the 1A, 1B with Rodgers and how they want it. I think that Quinn was the first plan. Then Hackett came in, blew the doors off the interview. Everybody loved him. Then Jacksonville tried to get him in there, and they panicked. And they were like, we all love this guy. Let's bring him back. And at that point, you're like, you just kind of hope that he can produce on the field as well. Like, you go with the character of the person, obviously the intelligence factor. And you look at it and you try to, there's people that go out and blame Peyton for it, but it's like, look at Mike McDaniel. What did he have on his resume?
Yeah.
He had this, like, essentially the same thing outside of like if you get particular with the plays, you obviously, I was a big Mike McDaniel fan. However,
what?
He did not call plays. Hackett did not call plays.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and so it's, and even like the first time head coach thing, Brian Dable had never been head coach before.
Kevin O'Connell.
You hit sometimes and you don't sometimes. And unfortunately,
everybody hit but us.
Amazing personality.
Three guys hit.
Everybody hit but us.
So Boggins, going back to McDaniel, because this guy is the most entertaining coach in the NFL. I mean, I just love. If I stumble upon any video of this dude, I'm watching it. An Aurora, Colorado guy was a ball boy for the Broncos. Like, coach there. Why didn't he even get talked to? Do you have any idea?
I honestly don't. I think it's probably just lack of experience. A lot of the time it's circles. That's people who know those people as well. And so you hear more about them and you just know more about them. I just think Miami was willing to take that risk. And I wish they had done that.
Yeah. And for Mike McDaniel, I think it's just such a weird one to where it's like we had no idea if he was going to be a head coaching candidate. We thought that he might, and I think that that's probably part of it. It's like we didn't know that he'd be a head coaching candidate, and the fact that he interviewed with the Dolphins, job and got it was just sort of like, oh wow, he interviewed, so why can't we step into it? And I think that that's sort of just where we're at, is like, and how frustrated we're. But to carry on Boggins' point, it's like it's anytime like just in an overall job interview, like and we even talked about it, even beforehand when we hired Hackett and even, when they were interviewing Dan Quinn, it's like we all felt anyway that Dan Quinn was the number one choice, but Nathaniel Hackett won him over. And it's like we had talked about that sometimes even, ad nauseum. And it's like anytime in a job interview, you may have the guy in mind, and that just doesn't say, for football interviews, just in interviews in general, but it's like you may have your guy in mind, but there's going to be someone that's going to come in and, swoo you to, be the right choice. And it may not be the guy that he had in mind, which is going to be Dan Quinn. I will say, though, it will be interesting to see if Dan Quinn will be the head coach for the Broncos next year, just because of if George Paton feels himself on the hot seat, will he go through this whole head coaching process, interview the candidates that he wants to interview and everything, but then in turn to the guy that he feels the most comfortable with, and maybe at the end of the day, that's Dan Quinn.
Did you say swoo you?
Yeah, swoo. I made up a word.
All right, on that lovely note, we're going to go ahead and take off. We want to thank everybody for joining us here on the show. And make sure you check out all of our other shows. We got shows on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Fridays, and then Sundays when we have games. So make sure you go check those out. Everything is in the description below. It's also in the ticker right there at the bottom. We will see you guys later.